This is the plaintiff, Gary Coddington. He says he owns a 5-bedroom house and rents out rooms to fellow military vets to help them out because he served in the past. He rented a room to the defendant, a young kid who was in the Navy, and he soon fell behind on his weekly payments. Turns out the defendant was nothing but troubled. He got kicked out of the Navy for stealing. He evicted him and is now suing him for the $845 he's owed in unpaid rent and damages. This is the defendant, Gennady. He says he did fall a little behind on his rent, but he worked out a deal with the plaintiff that he'd do odd jobs to make up for the shortfall. He cleaned out the guy's storage unit, changed his oil and timing belt, and fixed his truck, plus did a lot of work for the plaintiff. And now he's turning on him and suing him? Some people. He's accused of a terrible tenancy.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff rented a room in his house to a fellow military vet, says the guy was a nightmare and skipped out without paying all the rent. Now the defendant saying he did a bunch of odd jobs, so they're fair and square. It's the case of I am not at ease.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Coddington, you are suing one of your, I guess, former tenants, Mr. Gennady, for $845 that you say he owes you in damages that he left at the place, plus some rent that he didn't pay. Talk to me. You have a house with several bedrooms and you rent them out, right?
Yes.
And who do you typically rent them out to?
Well, I like to rent out to military people. I was in the service myself, but I try to keep everybody at a family pitch, and if they don't work out, then I try to get them out of here as soon as possible.
So what happens that goes wrong with this defendant? He ends up in a fight with one of the other tenants?
Yes.
What happens? Tell me about the fight.
Well, they were having a verbal fight to start with, and next thing I know, they were both under the weather, both been drinking, and next thing I know, why the cops were called, and it seems that Gennady had called the sheriff's office, and he went rushing out of the house and flipped a couple chairs in front of me, and went on out and talked to them out in front of the house. And
okay, what do you mean flipped a couple of chairs?
He blocked my my exit. I was going to follow him, and because I saw the lights of the cop cars, and he flipped 2 chairs down in front of me, and then ran out the front door.
What do you mean by flip? You're suing for the chairs. Did he damage the chairs?
He damaged 1 chair, yes.
Yeah, I don't see a picture of a damaged chair in evidence. Do you have any proof of the damaged chairs?
I'm sitting on it. I fixed it.
Okay, but why are you suing for $70 for it?
Oh, that's how long it took me to fix it.
That's how long it took you to?
There was another chair involved in his bedroom. He burned up the recliner, and he also burned up the rug in his bedroom. So.
Okay, what is the chair you're suing for? The ones that he toppled over?
I'm suing him for the whole package, everything, all the damages.
Well, all you listed was the chair that he toppled over. Do you have any evidence of paying $70 to repair a chair?
That was yes. It was time and material on this, and that's how long it took me to fix it.
May I see the proof of it? May I see a picture of a broken chair or proof that you paid $70 to fix it? Either one. I just need proof of the broken chair. Do you have any?
No, I repaired it. No, I can flip the chair over and show you where the repair on it.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. So there's a big fight. It's the 21st of December. He flips the chairs. He goes out and talks to the police. Do you go out and talk to the police as well?
No, I stopped at the door. He was out at the curb talking to the sheriffs. And I went to my room, and I just had it. And I wrote a
notice to quit?
Eviction notice. An eviction notice. Came back in and put it on his door. So I went to my room, and next thing I know, I heard a lot of noise and pounding. I got up, came back out, and Gennady was pounding on one of the tenants' doors, and he smashed his fist into the door. This I saw. And then when he saw
well, this
me
you actually
watching
also
him,
took a picture of. I have some pictures of that where you can see that he damaged it. Right next to where that wheel is, there's like a knuckle that went in, not a fist, a knuckle, right?
right,
Is that what you're referring to? Okay.
yes,
And this is the other tenant's door?
yes.
All right, now what are these pictures of?
Oh, that's the other door, the outside door to that tenant.
All right, and did he
there was some
damage that some
repairs.
way?
Yeah, he went outside after he saw me watching him. He went outside and came around to the outside door and was pounding on that and did some damage to it. And
Where's the
which I
damage on
found
that
out
door?
the next-
Do you have pictures that show the damage to that door?
No, I don't. I don't have a picture of it. All it didn't turn out.
Okay. So did he
Yeah.
get mad when you gave him notice? How did he react when you gave him notice?
Well, at first, the notice, Pat turned around and called the sheriff. Then the next thing, and then the sheriffs came back, and he ran in his bedroom and started stripping. And the one sheriff stayed outside of his door, his bedroom door, and the one sheriff went into his room, and they were talking. And the sheriff that was outside his room told me, "You got to get rid of him." And I said, "You're darn right." And so the cops were, and they said if they were going to come back one more time, they were going to lock us all up. So
That's cop talk for don't bother me anymore. I don't want to do my job. Okay, let me ask you a question, Gennady. What happened? Apparently, you got a little toasted and you got into a fight with one of the other tenants. What happened?
Yes, Your Honor. We were actually discussing about the present issue at hand, which is, did I pay back High Noon or Gary through working these odd jobs or not? And one of the tenants was worried that they themselves would lose the roof under their feet, under their heads, if I were to go and take further recourse, which is this right here.
I can't hear.
And I told him, I said, this is not between you and me. This is between me and the landlord, which is Gary right there. And he just couldn't understand that. It seemed like he was pretty selfish. And I told him, I was like, please, I told you, I just want to stop talking about this. And it just escalated from there. And he just kept on pushing. And I kept on saying, stop, just leave me alone in regards to this situation. Can we just please chill, have fun, have a few brews, listen to some Leonard Skinner and call it a day? And, no, I get it. If I was in the other tenant's shoes, I'd be, making sure that I have a roof over my head too. But we were both
because
inebriated.
what? Because you had supposedly at that point you owed back rent, but your theory on it was that you had been hired to do work around it, so you had worked off the rent. But Gary's theory was, oh no, you owe me rent. Is that correct?
I have also been paying more than what the average weekly rent was on top of those odd jobs once I finally got my job back, to help, offset some of those costs that are coming in, So on top of the jobs that I did within that time where I wasn't working encompassed with giving extra money towards, not instead of just the rent, but more than that, to pay off some of those fees. I feel like, yes, I have paid off whatever dues I was owed. It was like 3 weeks.
All right, so
of $165
you
a
have
week.
receipts, correct? You get the yellow carbon of the rent receipt, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Gary, you keep, when you write a receipt to a tenant, you keep the white copy, correct?
Yeah, I keep the original white copy, and the tenant gets the yellow copy.
So here's what I did in preparation for the case. I took all of the white copies and I took all of the yellow copies and I tallied it all out throughout March until he exited when? December
28th, I got down here in my paperwork. 28th.
And when I do that, I do find that you're still short, you see? So if your answer is, oh, Judge, I don't have to pay the amount I'm short, the amount I find you to be short is $740. Now, if your answer is, but Judge, I don't have to pay that because I did odd jobs around the house, watch this. Did you ever tell him that he could work off the rent? Yes or no?
I told him that when I had some work that I would give him, I would take it off the rent. I did not tell him that it would he could wipe off his rent by working.
I don't know what the difference is between those two things. Did you ever give him any work to do, and did he do any work?
He did a half a day's work, and I gave him credit for it and reduced his rent accordingly.
How much credit did you give him for the half a day's work?
Figured out the 4 hours of $40. I subtract $10 an hour off the rent.
Where did you do that? Where did you do that in your math? In your handwritten notes that you gave the court about what it is you're suing for, where did you do that in your math?
It's in there. I can't pinpoint it.
It's not. And do you claim that you worked more than the $40?
Yes, I do. Definitely.
How are you going to prove it?
Definitely. Okay, so Gary, did we not go on top of the house together and help you seal up your roof? How about that? Or going through your truck and making sure your timing belt was good, your oil was changed, and helping you with that. For that alone took half a day. That was one job. Or how about the organizing the shed in the back? That also was half a day. That was on a Sunday. Anything like that, ring a bell.
Gennady, why don't you get this stuff in writing? Why don't you have him, the day that you spend half a day organizing the shed, why don't you have him write down that he's giving you credit for the rent and keep it as a receipt? Because that's how we end up in the swearing match right now. What say you to what Gennady was just saying about all the other work he says he did?
He was up there with me on the roof.
This other work. I don't recall him working on my Ford at all, to tell you the truth. And
it wasn't your Ford.
What about organizing the shed or being? He says he worked on a Suzuki.
The shed, he did that, and that's where he spent about a half a day there.
Or painting the
according to him, he also
driveway.
Okay, Gennady,
just take a picture
stop
of your
talking.
driveway.
Mr. Gennady, just stop talking. He also says that he was on your roof helping you seal your roof. Did he do that?
I don't recall, to tell you the truth.
Okay, and he also says that he organized.
There, but I don't think it was him.
Okay, he also says that he organized. No, he worked on your Suzuki on the belt, a belt on your Suzuki. That he worked on your Suzuki. Does that ring a bell?
No.
Okay.
Your truck, the green truck that I painted. I have neighbors.
You painted a truck?
Helped them paint it and all. It's the same color paint as the driveway that I painted for him. The neighbors painted it, or you painted it? No, I painted it. Neighbors saw it, and they also saw me painting his driveway. So you're gonna forget about that one too?
Are they here as witnesses? Okay.
No.
Do you remember him working on your driveway?
Yes, he did help paint on the driveway, and I'm sure I gave him credit for anything he did over and above.
You say that, but I got to tell you, Gary, I'm looking at all these records and your math, and I don't see where you gave him credit for any of that. But that's, it's on you, because if you work and you expect to get credit for it, then you should be getting proof of it so that we don't have this contest we're having now. All right. You also have a security deposit on that side, right? Like a $400. Do you have a security deposit that he has?
Well, he still has it, but it was like...
Gennady, how much was the security deposit?
I can't remember off the top of my head. It was like $400 or something like that.
Does that sound right, Mr. Coddington? That it's $400 security deposit? Yeah. All right. When I do the math on the rentals, I find you to be $740 short. When we subtract the security deposit that he kept, I find you to be $340 short. When I hear the banter back and forth between you guys about work you did that he forgot, I'm sure I accounted for it. He doesn't account for it here. So I'm going to have to do a little rough justice now and try to figure out what you should be credited from the stuff he does admit that you did work. And this is really on you, that if you don't get full credit because you didn't get any proof of having done it.
Your Honor.
I'm going to reduce the amount by another $100 for the work, and that amounts to $240. But you damaged the door, and that amounts to another $100. And therefore, I'm going to order you to pay the plaintiff the sum of $340. I don't see any pictures that show anything about cleaning. I don't see any pictures or proof of a damaged chair. So that's the amount I'm awarding, $340 that the defendant has to pay the plaintiff. Good luck, folks.
So the plaintiff prevails. He gets $340. Let's talk to the defendant, see how he feels about this. Mr. Gennady, what's your reaction to the judge's decision? $340, you got to give him back.
It seems fair for what can be proven. So I guess that's what I have to deal with, and I'll just go from there. But
You
question:
really have
how
no choice.
do I pay this?
Well, that's
Like,
up to
is
you.
it through the court?
That's
or do
something
I,
you got to figure out.
Basically, okay, gotcha. Sweet.
Okay? You'll find out a way to get the money to him. $340, that's
Sorry,
the
someone
judgment
keeps calling
against
me.
you. Mr. Coddington, let me talk to you for a moment. You were suing for, almost $845. You're not getting anywhere near that, even less than half. What do you think?
Well, he left a lot of damages in his room, and I tried to bring that up, but I was cut off. And he burned up a chair that was a recliner. He burned up the rug, and he burned up some of the furniture, which I did repairs on.
Well, you should have had pictures of that to show the judge. It sounds like sometimes you get people in there that you really shouldn't have brought in the first place. He was probably one of them, right?
You're absolutely right. Thank you very much.
Well, congratulations. Okay. Well, you do win. So the People's Court is going to order that, $340. Now, that wraps up this case. Let us rejoin Judge Millian now. She's with her husband, Judge John, and we'll have another session of after the verdict.
This was a landlord-tenant case, and you referred to it at one point when you were talking about your judgment as a swearing contest. And so often as judges, that's what we see. We see one person on one side of the courtroom looking at you earnestly and honestly and saying, this is what happened. Somebody on the other side saying, no, this is what happened. But what you're looking for to sort it out is corroboration. Am I right?
Yes, and I remember, you just reminded me of a moment very early in my career in front of the wonderful Judge Mario Goderich, who was one of my mentors, who just was so frustrated because I was arguing something, the defense lawyer was arguing something, then I would argue, and he just said, oh, you people are always arguing and putting me in the middle. And I just burst out laughing. I go, yeah, that's kind of your job, Judge. And we all, the whole courtroom was cracking up. Because that happens, like that's exactly what the job of a judge is, to try to figure out, sort it through, and figure out exactly who's telling the truth about stuff.
Of course.
But, since there's a standard of proof, when the plaintiff comes in and says, he burned, first of all, he wasn't even suing for a burned recliner. That never came up until now, okay? And you can't do that. You have to sue for everything you want to talk about in court.
The proof has to conform to the pleadings.
To the pleadings. And so his pleadings never mentioned a burnt recliner. This is the first time he brings it up. And a judge has the authority to amend the pleadings to conform to the proof, but you can't just start bringing in the kitchen sink now because it sounds like you're going to lose on the stuff you did sue for.
But you saw corroboration. When we say corroboration, we mean independent verification by a photograph, by other testimony, by a record.
Right, and he didn't have any pictures of a rug or any proof of the burnt chair or any proof of the damaged chair that he fixed or any, there were things he was whining about that he really didn't have the proof of, that they actually cost $70 to fix.
But when he showed you a knuckle hole in the door...
A knuckle hole is good proof that
bad.
he's going to have to replace that door. And, and actually, I have to tell you that in most of these rooming house cases, very few of them actually give receipts and get receipts. Right. So that actually really did work out, that I had all of these copies of receipts from both the plaintiff and the defendant. It took some time to sit there and, collate them and figure out the defendant had some the plaintiff didn't have, the plaintiff had some the defendant didn't have. But we sat down, we looked at everything, and that's like the homework a judge does before they preside over a case, and kind of figured it out and figured out how much money was left over. The real hook here, though, the problem that the defendant had is that when he expends personal sweat, he should be getting a receipt too.
Right, and that's the only way to account for it. If you've done the work, you need a receipt just like handing over cash.
Right.
There you have it.
Yanni, it's hard to believe, but the first round with People's Court with Judge Wapner was 12 years. We are in season 24 with Judge Millian this time around. 36 years of People's Court. We've done 15,000 cases. And what's remarkable about it is that I've been around the whole time, and I'm only like 34 years old. We'll see you next time.